Do you hate facing the Sicilian if you're an e4 player? I've kind of quite often felt like I did and was looking for a good response to it. And I tell you, I've tried to get into the Smith-Morrow Gambit recently, but for some reason it didn't seem to stick, as well as my previous love, which is the Grand Prix attack. And the good thing about the Grand Prix attack is that most Sicilian players won't see it an awful lot. So I've just got 4 quick games to share with you. That if you like to attack, this could very well be an opening for you. And of course it also, by definition, includes a Freddy leap of faith. So the first game was played on Lee Chess, and this was submitted by Miko. So we're going to look at this one first, and then I've got 3 5-minute Blitz games that I've played recently in the Grand Prix for your enjoyment. So sit back, get a drink, and relax. So this is the Sicilian, e4, and black plays knight to c5. Miko, by the way, is a Chess Bootcamp Live member. And we continue now with a closed Sicilian, so knight to c3 rather than the much more usual knight to f3. Or, Smith-Morrow would continue with d4, or you've got like wing gambit ideas with b4. But this is kind of a balance between the crazy and the solid. Okay, so black now goes for a kind of dragon setup with a fianchetto on g6, and because this knight hasn't come out here, generally we'll throw out f4. f4, getting control over these central squares quite early and preparing to put our knight behind Freddy. Very often a good idea. And also something that I'm looking at in the French as well, but there'll be another video on that shortly. That's all thanks to Christina. So black proceeds and fianchettos the bishop. We develop knight to f3. Now the knight comes out. Now, a theme in the Grand Prix attack is that quite often, because you want to put your pawns on this dark squared pawn chain here, it's going to hamper this bishop, making this a poor bishop. So you'll quite often want to trade it off if you can for black's queen's knight. So Miko here plays the bishop b5 move. Now the knight is not pinned because the d pawn hasn't moved, right? If the d pawn had moved, then this is a guaranteed trade. You know that you can trade it off, even if they pull their bishop out. You know you can get rid of your ugly bishop and complete your pawn chain, right? Now sometimes black can play a move like this, coming around maybe to capture your bishop and maybe not. This is what they do in this game. So here Miko just ignores that and pushes a4, which is an interesting response. Black now takes the bishop, which is what we wanted to do in the first place anyway, so we recapture with the a-pawn, but very often in the Grand Prix you're not really too concerned about this queen side. It's going balls out, you're throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at black down the king side of the board. Okay, we now have the d6 and black opens up his bishop. We play the corresponding d3, they develop their knight and we castle. So now we have quite a typical Grand Prix structure with the knight behind the pawns here. And the general idea from here is you're going to play this next key move, queen to e1, and very often, provided there isn't a bishop here, you'll put your queen on h4, so sorry, from here up to h4, and then in combination with the knight you want to come in and checkmate your opponent. Right, pretty straightforward. Castles seems safe. Queen e1, the correct move, like it. Okay, they bring out their bishop now, having a little tickle at our pawn, which is defended by a knight. So bang, yeah, there you go, out comes the queen to h4. Okay, and we are going to start now to poke holes in black's defense. Black's bishop and queen aren't really able to come to the aid of the king that quickly, so this is a mistake. So this pawn was defended by the king. Now here it's defended only by the bishop, right? So now f5, and f5 is again another very signature move, right? So now this pawn's not defending this. So what does black do? Black pushes. Not the best idea, okay? Because now we sack. So Miko sacks his bishop, right? This bishop that's done nothing in the game. We've just quietly moved all of our pawns up, exposing this diagonal and now it's time for the bishop to surrender his life for the cause. Pawn takes. Now we're not winning yet at this, but well, we are plus 3.7. Okay, so clearly we can recapture with a knight here, and we want to checkmate black on h7, but we can't do that, can we, boys and girls? Because there's an horrible knight in our way. So first, Miko takes the knight. Now this horsey knows it has to hold its ground and keep its post, otherwise we have mate in 1. Right, so black again here. So what are the ratings of these players? Does it tell me on there? No, I think this. Oh yeah. So Miko's 1279 rapid on. I guess this is rapid on Lee chess, which is 1050 kind of equivalent on chess.com. Opponent captain Schnuffel is a little bit higher. Okay, now this is not a good move. You see, we've just gone from +3 to +7. And what this means is that white may now have an opportunity to disturb this knight. So this is actually an interesting point to pause, because I really like Miko's idea here. All right. So what black should have done, by the way, is move the rook and give the king at least one escape square, which can sometimes help, right? Get the king to safety. So pause if you want and think, how would you ensure that that knight move from that square? Okay, so I'll show you what Miko did. Really nice idea. Pawn goes forward to e5. And you're thinking, but Hunty, that doesn't even make sense because it can just get taken. Well, it does get taken, but now look, right? Where was this pawn? Here, okay? This knight is the key. This pawn, by moving forward and giving up its life, has now vacated the e4 square. Now the knight comes into the e4 square. Okay, this is simply a mistake from black, because now we can just take the knight, and however he takes, it's mate. Okay, beautiful, beautiful game. Really nice example of the Grand Prix. So I've got 3 more quick games to show you. Here's the first. So these are all 5-minute blitz. That's what I've been playing recently, just messing about. My opponent's rated 1533, clap out from Austria. Okay, Sicilian, close Sicilian. E6, very typical, and f4. Now he plays a6. This is not uncommon, so he's preventing the bishop from coming out to this square, right? So out comes the knight, and b5. Now he's really pressing up the queen side. So we give up any ideas of trying to trade off this bishop. It's just pointless now, right? We can bring this bishop to e2, and the queen can still get around after we castle, so this is fine. He brings his bishop out. Our knight decides to come around now, which he can do quite happily, just to avoid ideas of being forced round by the pawns. He brings out his knight, and our queen's knight now has come all the way over to g3, where it may join in the fun. Bishop now to e7. Now sometimes if you see this, then that can make the move queen h4 a bit trickier, but sometimes you might still come to e1 and then g3. We'll see what happens in this game, because I haven't refreshed my memory of these games, I just know that I win. Okay, so we develop our bishop to e2, where it's, it's not really in too much of a way. Castles, castles, and black pushes another pawn. This is now the 5th pawn that he's moved. We develop our bishop. We're just starting to line everything up now. Knight comes out, and now the key f5 move. Not sure this was best. e5 might have been better. Black blocks the e-file now with a pawn push, but this has the problem of leaving a lot of black's forces are now shut out of this key channel, which is where we want to attack. So now in comes the knight. Pawn pushes away. And the computer says this is even now, right? The knight now retreats back to h3. His knight comes in, having a sniff at my bishop, which you're welcome to. So here, c3. Go on, knight, what's your plan? Take the bishop, thank you very much. That suits me. That bishop was serving no use to man nor beast there. And now queen c7, for reasons best known to black. Right, now in comes my knight. So now I want to trade off this knight. We have to get rid of this defender. Right, he doesn't go for it. I improve my queen. He pushes a pawn forward. and now we sack. Again, it's very kind of typical ideas here. Sack the bishop on h6 here. If pawn takes, it's not going to end well. Right, so here the knight actually trades itself off. I recapture with the queen, bishop still hangs. He takes the bishop. Boom. And this is now very not good indeed. Okay, so the computer actually disapproved of my next move. The best move apparently was the immediate pawn to f6. This shuts the bishop out of the game and allows me to capture here and just go in and mate, and I think that's just pretty much unstoppable. If I go here, maybe king here is an idea, but also then I have knight g5 and whatever, right? Still got 3.5 minutes. I decide to lift my rook first, and the computer now says that black's better, but black now throws away his advantage with king h7, right? But now, this is my idea, now I push f6, and there's no way of stopping. So in fact, my opponent here, with I think 2 minutes on his clock, 3 minutes on his clock, just runs his clock down. He can't find anything because the next move is going to be this. Knight to g5 with check. King can't go there, king can't go there because of the pawn or the queen. King has to retreat, and then my queen's just simply going to come in and checkmate, okay? So the point of this is not for you to try to remember moves, but familiarise yourself with ideas. Okay, my next game, again I'm playing a 1500. Sicilian, close Sicilian, again e6, f4, knight comes out, right, I'm holding my file. I'd love to see this d-pawn move. As soon as that d-pawn moves, the bishop comes straight out to b5 to trade itself off. There we go, out comes the bishop, right, whatever he does now, the next move is the same, we get rid of the bishop. Okay, happy days, happy days. Now he has a less than ideal pawn structure on the queen side, but means that we can just push d3 now, close off our pawn structure, and crack on with the business of the day. Okay, he develops his knight, we castle. Queen comes out again to c7, again kind of putting herself offside, right? So sometimes black has ideas about kind of getting some counterplay down the queen side, but the idea is that you just don't give them time to do that. Okay, bishop develops, again, so here you see my queen has come to g3 instead of h4, because if I go to h4, then this knight's got a free play. It can come in and snack this pawn because there'd be a discovery against the queen, so queen goes there. Knight attacks queen, also defending g7, right? This is a good pattern to know. I just push upwards slightly, now attacking the knight. Pawn pushes up, okay. In comes the knight. So you see it's just like everyone just piles in now on the king. Okay, knight retreats here to save itself. I just drop my queen back because his knight was now attacking my queen. Pawn pushes up. Right, note that black's king is still stuck in the middle of the board. My knight now retreats. Right, I can't see my opponent castling in a hurry here. His knight now swivels back. It's like he's all over himself. He's really got no space. And this bishop is awful. This bishop has really got, you know, very few career prospects in its favour. And now, of course, what we want to do, well, the computer doesn't like this move. I think actually e5 here was the move that would break open the position. I couldn't really calculate that, so I pushed f5 anyway. Takes. I take this pawn. Knight comes round, I pin, okay? So this is one case where my opponent hasn't even castled. Knight comes round and abuses my queen. Queen comes back, we trade bishops. Now he castles. All right, so how do we finish from this position? And my first move is h3. I guess I'm just stopping this bishop from coming in. Knight comes back around. That knight has done quite a few steps so far. And queen to h4 immediately. And now we basically, how do you stop mate here, right? There's only one thing, you have to make that rook move. You have to give your king one escape square. Takes, back rank now, comes back in here. The knight is now on Prix. Okay, so I get the knight. He puts his rook in the way. I check with my A rook. And now I capture with the knight on f7. Obviously queen f7 doesn't make sense. King moves away. but drops the rook. King moves to here, and now I stick my queen here, defended by my own rook. I'm +9 in material, so I'm up a whole rook and a minor piece and a pawn, and my opponent resigns at that point. So you go, different ways we can go, but what I'm trying to communicate here is the ideas, the general principles, and the flavour and the character of the Grand Prix attack. So that if you might be looking at these games going, that just doesn't feel very right or comfortable to me, or you may be looking at these games going, yeah man, that is my kind of style, that's the kind of chess I want to play. Okay, final game here, opponents rated 1427, is that Bangladesh? Albania, I get confused. Bangladesh is the green, is it? Green and red dot. Okay, so now here the knight comes out straight away on move 2. And we've got options, but I'll just push f4 here, maybe get my knight out, and just still waiting for that d4 pawn to move. He's getting ready to fianchetto. No worries, so knight f3, right? We know we're going to play that move. We know it's not a mistake, so we'll generally play that. Fianchetto's the bishop, and now I lose patience and my bishop flies out, okay? So he might pivot round here, or he'll probably not. He'll probably stick to principles, and there you go. E6, so I trade off the bishop, can't wait to do that. He recaptures away from the centre with his d-pawn. I just push d3, and we crack on. So knight develops, castles, queen e1 again, remember? So all these kind of familiar ideas coming up, okay? And now, because the bishop is gone here and not here, what move do we play? Queen h4. And the idea is this knight's going to fly in, we're going to try and checkmate back. Right, simple stuff. Queenside counterplay. We've seen this before, but white is now in a winning position. f5, okay, typical move. Computer didn't like it. Okay, but computer can schmooter. Right, the reason is because it's attacked 3 times and defended only once, but I don't need this pawn. Okay, so he takes it, and now the knight comes out. I'm ignoring the pawn. Pawn don't matter. Okay, now it says black's actually winning, but not now, because it's mate in 2. Right? Don't know what black needed to do here, but didn't really care. It's a blitz game. We've only used 30 seconds of our time. Check there, only one move, checkmate, all done and dusted. Thank you very much. So for me, I know it doesn't have the same kind of characteristics as the rest of the kind of Freddy Krueger repertoire, but it is very similar to the Vienna. And if I when I played the Vienna against e5, then this f4 move is something that I'm familiar with, and I'm familiar with castling kingside, in the Vienna gambit kind of lines. Freeing up my rook. I'm familiar with kingside attacks in the Vienna, so I'm trying to, put together openings that have a natural familial resemblance. So yeah, put it that way. So yeah, I hope that's interesting for you if you're looking for a decent response. And this is not an unsound system to play against the Sicilian. It's not the most common out there, but it's played at every level, so why not? Knock yourself out. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. See you later.